Good evening and welcome. Tonight we speak with the CEO of the Consumer Council of Fiji, Ms. Seema Shandil, and we will review the work of the CCF thus far in 2019. Good evening and welcome. And welcome. This is the first time that you've been with us on the show. Let's have a review of 2018. How many complaints did the council receive in 2018?
The number of complaints that the council received in 2018 was around 3,448, and the council was able to successfully resolve 3,367 complaints. What we all normally try to do is, to resolve the maximum number of complaints so that we can send back our complainants happily back to their homes, right? So out of the remaining complaints, 79 were referred to the small claims tribunal because we were not able to successfully solve it at the council, and 209 cases were referred to other authorities because sometimes what happens is the respondents are not very cooperative. So in that case, we have to refer it to enforcement agencies. However, having said that, in total, the council was able to resolve approximately 4.6 million worth of complaints, putting the money back to consumers' pockets.
That would obviously mean that there's quite a lot of work that goes on around the clock with the Consumer Council. Can you talk to us about some of the major areas of concern that the public had pointed out?
Definitely, yeah. Every year what the Consumer Council does is we compile and analyze the different types of complaints that we receive, and what topped the list of 10 top complaints was landlord and tenancy issues. Actually, that has ranked the highest for the last 5 years. And surprisingly, I would say it's quite shockingly to see the same kind of issues arise, like, issues with bonds, illegal increase of rent, and sometimes the landlord goes to the extent of disconnecting the utilities that is provided to the tenants. If there's some minor issues that come up between them, and they go to the extent of doing such things, and sometimes you'll see the rent is so high, but the conditions of the premises are not as par with the high prices that the tenants have been leased out.
But the FCCC has been trying to resolve this by urging landlords to register themselves, and at the same time urging those who are tenants to actually have a written contract so that they have a lease agreement. We see that most of the time that's not the case. People tend to live in informal settlements and have a verbal agreement. So in cases like that, how does the Consumer Council go about resolving those issues?
Yeah, that's a very good point that you have raised, the absence of agreement. We continuously advocate our consumers and all those tenants that, as soon as you go and get into, or you go and go hunting for a house and you happen to get some place for tenancy, so what you do is, first thing, you get into an agreement. But that's the issue every time when we have complaints. When we receive complaints, then we see there is no agreements that have been signed.
Right.
So what we normally advise during mediation process, what we advise the landlords and the tenants, sometimes we have to provide a agreement. We have a sample agreement that the FCCC also have. So what we do is we provide them with the agreement, but sometimes it's too late because the problems have already arise between that.
So in fact, for the past few years, this time it was a total of 10% of all total complaints with landlord and tenancy issues. And for the past 3 or 4 years, both the FCCC and the Consumer Council has been doing a lot to raise awareness on these issues. So does it surprise you that this issue still tops the list?
Yeah, definitely, because the thing is, despite a lot of campaigns, awareness, and advocacy, it still tops the list. And most of the time we see, I'm not citing the tenants, but most of the time we see that they are given some of the clauses in the agreement. Even if there's an agreement between them, the clauses in the agreement is like, the visitors are not allowed, or you cannot hold any religious function. How fair is that? Despite paying 700 or 800 for that flat, you are not allowed to do certain things.
But that's infringing upon someone's basic human rights, freedom of expression, freedom to practice religion and all of that.
Right. And in December last year, a lot of landlords as well were aggrieved with the extension of the rent freeze. What's the progress on that?
Well, we are happy because, already if you look at the rent rates, it's really high. And if you go and assess the conditions of some of the flats, it's really, I would say that it's not up to par. So if you are giving a flat on rent, where if the rental rates are above 500, it should be worth that amount.
Right.
But it's sad to say, and you'll be surprised based on certain assessment, we have seen that the conditions are really bad. Yeah.
Because even
so if the landlord really wants an increase, they should also upgrade their facilities.
Right.
Yeah?
Now, while we're on the subject of landlord and tenancy, we have seen issues arise with those who are trying to purchase house and land, saying that the commission that is being set out by those who are real estate agents and salespersons is not regulated, and sometimes it's quite exorbitant. Now, we did speak to the Real Estate Licensing Board, and they have stated that there is no particular minimum standard of commission. Now, is there anything that the Consumer Council can do, maybe to liaise with them to sort that out?
Okay, you must have heard in the news, it's coming up, the Ministry of Local Government is actually looking into it. Right? Mrs. Kumar has made, the Honorable Minister Mrs. Kumar has made a lot of statements about it. Yes, I think the ministry is reviewing all the policies, the acts in place, and definitely something will be there, something good will be there for the interest of the consumers.
So moving on from landlord and tenancy agreements, what other issues topped the list for complaints?
Food and drinks is the second on our list. Just recently you must have seen a lot of press releases and press conferences from Consumer Council. Through our market surveys, what we found that food products that were sold were of not the expected quality. The expired goods were sold, and the visibly discolored meat products, right? And visibly rotten fruits and vegetables were being sold to the consumers, and the prices are quite exorbitant. If you go and buy, our poor consumers, I mean, they also need, this meat is a source of protein for them. So when they go and buy curry pieces, which is between $10 to $14, and the product that they are buying, you can tell from a distance that it is not good for consumption. I mean, people can argue, how can you prove that? However, because you are standing there and you are getting the foul smell from the meat that is on sale, you can say that that's not fit for consumption. Yeah.
So if someone comes to you, to the Consumer Council of Fiji, complaining that on this particular day, they noticed that in this supermarket, there was bad meat being sold or an expired product being sold, what's the procedure that the or that the CCF undertakes?
Normally what happens is when we get tip-offs from the consumers, we collaborate with the municipal councils, city councils. So we have actually started working with the health inspectors on this aspect. So once we get the tip-off, we go and do our market surveillance, and then we issue warning letters to the traders. And if they don't want to comply with it, that's the time when we start collaborating with the health inspectors, so that because they have the powers to go and condemn the meat products or the food products. And currently that's what our major project is. We're not going to...
That's quite an interesting subject, but I think we should explore this more later on.
Right. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. Ms. Shandil, before the break we were discussing food and drink in Fiji and consumer rights in relation to that. Let's talk about the attitude of consumers, or rather traders, when these complaints are launched against them.
Sometimes what happens is, it's like they are repeat offenders. We provide them with warning letters, they get abatement notices, but it seems that it's falling into deaf ears. So, as I have already iterated, that we work with the relevant authorities, but the excuses that we normally receive from them is human errors. But we don't want to hear that explanation. You cannot always blame that the mistakes have been made because of human errors. Human error will happen one, twice, but it cannot be a repeat thing, right? So we refuse to accept that explanation, because what we think is that the traders fail to bridge that gap in their processes. That's why these kind of issues continue to occur.
I mean, it is rightfully that a supermarket should owe a duty of care to its consumers. And of course, right now, the mechanism is that fines are imposed against these traders. But do you think that that mechanism is working, imposing fines for supermarkets that may receive, for example, an income of more than $20,000 a day? Do you think that mechanism works to ensure that they don't repeat?
If you are asking for my personal opinion, I don't think so it's working, because you can take them for fine, they pay the fine, they come back, and they can be repeat offenders. And we have seen in some places that has actually happened.
So just as a suggestion, I don't know how this would work, but could it be possible that maybe in the future, if legislature were to be changed, that practicing license and business licenses could be revoked, could be suspended to deter them completely? Because once you do that, that would shut down their main source of incomes, as in, there would be more than just a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. What you are suggesting is much more harsher penalties that could work. Yeah, definitely that could work, and that could be considered moving forward. Yeah, because what the Consumer Council is doing is we are fearlessly fighting to protect the interest of our consumers.
Then again, we have to consider the fact that it's not just traders, it's also a duty of care for consumers themselves to be able to identify problematic areas and not fall into the trap. Sometimes, we do this thing, we go into the supermarket and we see, oh, that meat is rotten, or never mind, I won't buy that, I'll buy something else. So we don't report it, we don't do anything about it, and I'm not buying that meat, so why should I report it?
Yeah, you're so true. So as I've said, the consumers do have some responsibilities when they are shopping or when they are in the marketplace. They need to exercise their responsibility. If you are buying something, you examine it carefully. So if you are buying a meat product and if you see that it's discolored, you have the right to demand quality food products. So you can actually go and have a talk and ask them to provide with what you want to buy. And sometimes you'll notice, as the product is about to expire, it's placed in a trolley and it put in front of and at a reduced price. And we see our consumers actually going in buying that, knowing that the product is about to expire or it's expiring the next day. So this is where we are calling upon our consumers to exercise their responsibilities very well, so that they don't get into issues like that, they don't waste their money.
And while we're on that subject, tell us about the consumer rights in relation to damaged packaging or dented items.
Actually, damaged packaging and dented items should not be on the shelves. Right, consumers should not be, because we are paying the full cost. Like if the price is $245 for suppose a bag B, if you are purchasing the damaged item, you are paying the same amount. So that should not be sold to the consumer. It should be completely removed from the shelves.
When someone brings such a complaint to the Consumer Council, what form of evidence do they need to bring with them?
Suppose if a consumer has purchased a 4 kg flour, and when upon taking it home, he opens the bag and he sees there are a lot of weevils. So they need to get some. So what they do is, with that bag or with that pack of flour, they bring that as an evidence to the Consumer Council, from where we start our investigation.
But sometimes it's perishable items, like say for example, you have fruits, you have vegetables, you have meat. Even in the process of bringing it over, say for example you have someone who lives in Nandi or Lotoka and they need to bring it into the offices here in Suva. On the way, maybe with the heat it could deteriorate even further. They won't be able to prove that it was at
we also have our regional offices in Lotoka and Lambasa, and yes, you can take pictures, but then you will have to provide evidence, the receipts from where you've actually purchased, because sometimes what also happens is, we need to have evidences in order to investigate. So you need to also provide us with the receipt that you have purchased a particular product from a particular supermarket or particular shop.
Now, let's look at another thing that topped the list, coming in third, something that everyone is beginning to deal with on a daily basis: electronic goods and services. Now, terms and conditions apply. We hear that all the time when it comes to buying new mobile phones, laptops, even with data plans and all of that. Talk to us about that.
As you have already mentioned, it's a very major concern, because nowadays our people really want smart products, especially the smartphones. So not everyone is able to afford a high-end mobile products. There's a lot of counterfeit mobile products in the market, and the low prices actually attracts the consumers. Just recently we received a complaint whereby a lady has purchased a replica plus 8 phone. Upon taking the phone to home, she realizes that she can't download any of the apps. She cannot connect to the internet. So these are some of the problems they face. At the same time, there are complaints about phones not working after 2 or 3 days because this is counterfeit products. But what actually attracts them is the low prices. So my advice to the consumers is to do comparative shopping, research a bit about those products, because there are other people who have actually bought those products, and do a bit of research before you get into purchasing that particular product. Yeah.
We'll have more for you right after the break. Welcome back. Let's continue on with the conversation we were having before the break. There's one particular trader in Fiji who's had 192 complaints lodged against them in the past 5 years. This is a mobile phone trader. What are the limits to what limits does the CCF face in taking such people into account?
The respondent that you are talking about, we have received numerous complaints. So what we actually have done, we have tried to get the respondent. We have tried to talk to the respondent, but it makes no difference to him. So what we have done is we have given the case to FCCC because they are the enforcers. So now the case is sitting with him. He has been charged a number of times. Not actually charged. He has been given a lot of letters, warning letters, but he continues to do the same. He sells faulty products, he sells counterfeit products, and every week we receive complaints in regards to his products, the products that he sells.
People tend to have this mentality that if it's a service, and they can get away with poor service, because if it's a product, then it's tangible, then you have proof. If it's service, you can't guarantee whether or not you're bound to contractual terms. Talk to us about the limitations there, and how do you move forward in trying to assess whether or not they are providing the standard quality service to all consumers.
In regards to the mobile?
In regards to mobile phones, you could look at also electronic devices, bus services as well.
Yeah, I mean, the issue here is, I think none of us are taking the responsibility, especially, the service providers. They are thinking that they can get away with whatever the way they are providing the services. Even if you look at the public transportation, we are receiving a lot of complaints in that aspect, because a lot of commuters, they use public transport on a daily basis. So even our elderly citizens who have concession cards are denied to receive the subsidy, and they're asked to pay the full fare if the bus companies are not adhering to the schedules. And on the other side, there are other service the public transportation area who are charging higher fare to the consumers, which they should not be rightfully doing. And there are other services like construction. So, building industry is at a boom. So a lot of complaints in these areas are coming. Construction services, land and service, the joinery area. Also, we are receiving complaints in related to hairdressing salons, beauty salons. So, having said that, there are multiple types of complaints, but it seems that the traders are not taking seriously of the type of services they are providing. They are not upgrading their services.
So let's look at once a complaint has been made, whether it's for products, goods, services, whatever it is. What is the turnaround time?
The turnaround time depends on the complexity of the cases. For a very simple, straightforward case, if the turnaround time is about 3 working days. However, if the complaint is really complex or the respondent is not cooperating, then it takes a bit of time. But the council endeavors to solve the complaint as soon as possible. The onus is also on the consumers to provide us with the evidence, because we cannot move on to investigate the case without the evidences.
You also have different levels of solving or mediating certain complaints. Not all of them are referred to the courts, like you've mentioned before.
Yeah. So what we do is, if it's a simple case, and if an email or a telephone call can solve the case, and a redress can be provided to the consumer, then we close the case. However, if it's a bit complicated case, we take that case through a mediation process, because it's a win-win situation when it goes through a mediation process and the respondent agrees and provides a redress. However, there are times when we can't reach to any decision, positive decision, so that's the only time that we refer the cases to other authorities.
Have complainants shown a preference for the mediation process?
Yes, they do. If they, I mean, because the complainants normally want, if they are buying something, like for example, electronic goods, and they have spent thousands of dollars, obviously they will want the problem to be solved, because they don't want to be running around. Yeah, so they happily go through the mediation process.
So I think we jumped a few topics a while ago. Let's talk about e-ticketing services again. How many complaints have you received with regards to e-ticketing?
We actually receive complaints on an ongoing basis in regards to e-ticketing, because what happens is, this the lower dominated e-ticketing cards, sometimes people want the $2, I think it's a $2 e-ticketing card, and the drivers refuse to provide it to them, or they are charged more because it's charged for different stages, so they are charged more for their fares. These are some of the times. Sometimes the machines are not working, and sometimes they are not onboarded because the machines are not working, or the tickets are not printed, because you know that now the law is there that if you don't have the ticket, you'll be charged, right? So the machine is not working, so they don't get the tickets.
So while we're still on e-ticketing, what are your thoughts on the self-top-up machines that have now been installed at certain bus stations? What if you go and put your money in and then you don't get your card topped up? What in instances like that? What do you do?
I think it's a very great initiative, I would say, because it saves a lot of time, and but having the issue that you have raised, I think we'll have to do a lot of awareness and advocacy, and in no time consumers will be able to learn, because we have an educated society here. Yeah.
Right, so our next issue that we wish to discuss is FPOS machines. Now, there's still a lot of confusion, especially since the last time it was announced in the budget and was implemented this year. A lot of consumers are still confused. I personally am confused when I use the cards. So, for example, there's a difference between the charges that are imposed on a debit and a credit card. Could you explain that to us?
Yeah, in the I think it was actually introduced in the 2018 and 2019 budget, where the FPOS fee was removed from the debit and credit card. The confusion is, because we are also receiving a lot of complaints, I think the confusion is where actually the traders are charging fees on the debit card, which should not be the case. Only the set charge of certain amount is allowed on the credit card. Like, it depends on the traders. When you go and buy something from a shop, they put it on, there's a disclosure there, or they saying that 2% will be charged on your credit card, but they should not be charging anything on the debit card. Yeah.
So if a consumer is charged a surcharge on their FPOS transaction, what evidence do they need to bring?
Definitely, they will be given I think they will be issued with a statement or a receipt, which they can bring to us, and we can take the case, because we have a debt management officer who assists in all these complaints. Yeah.
And what about the charges that
we have also been receiving issues like we are trying to move towards a cashless society, right? And what actually happens is, sometimes we don't carry cash, but a certain amount has been levied by the traders, whereby you need to either purchase items more than $10, or some places it's $15, right?
Yeah.
So this is not the case. It should not be the case. There is no such rule that says that you have to actually purchase $10 worth of goods or services, then only you can use your debit card, your access card. In some service stations, they do not allow you to use your debit cards. Like, they can't expect the consumers to move around with cash. Yeah.
So let's say, for example, the interbanking fees that a bank usually imposes. Let's say, for example, I am with one bank, and the FPOS machine at a particular shop doesn't have is not for my bank, it's for another bank. Can that other bank also impose a charge on my
Well, it depends on the bank's charges, but just recently the Consumer Council actually uploaded BSP because they have actually reduced their cost from $50 to 50 cents, and we are hoping the other banks do the same.
Okay. We'll have more for you right after the break. Welcome back. Ms. Shandil, as Fiji moves into more of a globalized world, you must have noticed that more transactions are happening online, and this is something that we've been trying to grapple with for the past few years in Fiji. Do you still receive a lot of complaints with regards to online transactions?
Yes, we do. I mean, the consumption landscape is changing. It operates in a rapidly changing environment, which can be characterized like, very turbulent and disruptive. Having said that, the use of computer, tablets, smartphones, internet, and the spread of e-commerce is a major concern for all the consumer advocates. Identity theft is on the rise, and the safety of our children using internet is a major concern for all the enforcement bodies, for parents, and for consumer advocates. So, yeah, we have seen a lot of issues. So what we normally advise, because sometimes we are so enticed with the products that we see online, and this new technology has created a connection with the rest of the world, but it has also opened the consumer, exposed the consumers to a lot of sophisticated consumer scams.
Right.
So what actually happens is when consumers go and purchase online, that the money is paid and the items do not arrive, or sometimes they are expecting something else and something else arrives, because you cannot see from or judge from the picture that the quality will be maintained. So these are some of the issues that we are getting. But my advice to the consumers is, if you are purchasing from somewhere online, what you need to do is you review the site, you go and read reviews, you try to assess whether the online buyers are able to get their products on time or not,
to exercise their own discernment.
So if they see there's the trader is removing all the reviews, or they removing the comments from his social media page, that means there's something fishy. So don't indulge in buying from those
You have
traders.
instances though where people create pages and then they have these fake accounts and they have fake reviews, so you can't really rely on that. What are your thoughts on probably getting all these online businesses to actually register themselves so that you can track them better?
Yeah, that will be a good start. However, currently most of the countries in the world do not have any policies, or the policies, acts and regulations in place. Consumer advocates from the other parts of the world are working together so that they can get something in place to protect our consumers.
Are we moving towards a more stringent legal framework for online buying in Fiji?
Yeah, as I have said, we the consumer advocates are trying to work, and we will be doing the same moving forward.
Looking at some of the positives, of course we cannot talk about what's upcoming given the budget that's going to be announced in June, but let's look at something that you have done in the past, the CCF has done. After years of lobbying, the Accident Compensation Act rather has finally been established, and that means the protection of people and their rights in the country. Tell us more about other positive effects.
Yeah, as you have said, over the years, the council have lobbied, made a lot of submissions, and I would like to applaud and commend the government of the DAE, to bring about policy changes that have had a positive impact on consumers and protected the consumer interest. Just last year, the council have really, lobbied for so many years to reduce the cost of dialysis treatment. And last year, the government introduced the life-saving subsidy. That was an achievement for the council and for our consumers. Also, the removal of FPOS fees, as I have already mentioned, on the debit and credit card, which is because we are trying to move towards a cashless society, and that is what was stopping our consumers from using these cards. So that also ensures, this waiver ensures that our consumers are protected. And in 2017 and 18 budget, the Consumer Council also made a submission whereby the council requested if the electricity subsidy could be provided to those who earn below the household that earn below 30,000. And the government's response again was really good, whereby they reduced or they provided government subsidy to those who are earning less than 30,000 and use 100 kilowatts per hour.
Now, of course, you rely on consumers to actually put forward complaints and also suggestions so that you can make submissions like these. What are some areas that you think consumers are still not happy with, even though you have lobbied for changes?
Currently there is a lot of issues. Again, the surcharge on credit cards, there have been a lot of complaints coming in this regard, and they have again asked us to go back to the government and ask for the removal of the surcharge that they are being charged, as we have discussed previously. And there is a lot of issues about price control items. Suppose these are I would like to highlight, this was just brought to our attention in the INA program, whereby the complainant was telling us whenever he or she goes to buy bread, the medium size bread is always out of stock.
Right.
Or always they are given that it has been sold out. And what was depressing was he was telling us that he felt that there was a poor consumer at the back just with the dollar something to buy that medium sliced bread, and when he went to the counter he was told that he can't get it because it's out, it has been sold out. So he had to move out of the bakery without the loaf of bread. So that's it. So these are some of the things that we're going to again
What about substitute products and services that are being marketed to the public? This happens quite often. You go, say, for example, to a restaurant, or you go to a supermarket or a service provider, and you ask for product or service A, and they give you product or service B because they no longer have it. You are entitled, of course, to pay full price for something, and yet they expect you to take something of lesser value. Where do consumers' rights stand?
Especially for those traders who have, for example, a written notice above the counter, no refunds or something like that.
Yeah, but then there, I would again say it's the consumer's responsibility to make the call. Nobody can force you to buy a substitute product, because sometimes what happens is you don't know. Suppose if you are buying electronic goods, right? There's, you must have heard about misleading advertisements, and there's a term used, bait advertisement, where there's advertisement saying you have certain products on sale, and when you go there they tell you it's out of product and you can take a substitute product, and this product is really good, it has similar features, and then they influence you so much that you end up buying. But again, as I said, it's a consumer's code. Please make the right decision. Don't get influenced by the salesperson or the traders, and then you get involved in buying something that you don't want to buy.
When we come back from break, we'll discuss consumer attitude in the final segment. Welcome back. In Fiji, Ms. Shandil, we have the attitude of suffering in silence. So let's say, for example, we see a violation happening and we turn a blind eye because it doesn't directly affect us. And there are many issues that get swept under the rug in such a way. So how would you encourage consumers to work with the CCF?
As I have already, iterated, that we need tip-offs from the consumers, right? So if you think something is wrong being done to you and you cannot voice out it there because you don't feel that confident, we are here for you. We are your voice. Please do not hesitate. Call us on 155 or drop us an email, or just come and visit us, and we will definitely help them, because we are an advocacy organization.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what I meant was, while you're on that subject, a lot of people have this attitude where they love to post on their own social media pages and platforms about complaints, yet they don't realize that the Consumer Council is quite active on these platforms themselves.
Yeah. So what they can do, because most of the time our younger generations, they are quite vocal. So what they can do is, because they are always on social, the Facebook platform, they can also visit our Facebook page, and if they see that there is issues, they can take the picture, have the evidence, and then post the evidence with the complaints, and we can follow up with them.
And what's the turnaround time for a complaint at the Consumer Council?
So we are on the Facebook every day. We have campaigns, a media officer in the offices, so keep on following Facebook. If there's any complaint, what we do is we call the complainant. or we try to contact the complainant, and depending on the nature of the complaint, so and we if evidences are there, it should be, I mean, if it's a pretty straightforward, it should be solved as soon as possible.
So the market is changing daily. You have so many different types of products. You have different services. You also have a different way of marketing them. And how does the Consumer Council plan to go about consumer education and awareness programs regarding this? Because of course, it's constantly changing.
Right. Our role is to advocate, and we are going to aggressively venture into this. So currently, we are targeting our vulnerables. Having said vulnerables, our rural, because these are the poor people who don't understand their rights and responsibilities. So we want to educate them to that extent that when they are in the marketplace, they know their rights. So just last week or this week, I would say, my team has been in KRC for the last 3 days, where they were trying to impart information and knowledge about consumer rights and responsibilities. We are collaborating with different stakeholders, ministries, and we are moving out in places like Namosi, Thailevu, and we are trying to move out to maritime islands as well, because we have consumers there as well. And in line with the government's national development plan, where they say empowering youths to be the agent of change. So we also targeting a lot of schools. We're visiting schools. We are we're trying to educate the primary, secondary, even the tertiary students, so that they can also help us spread the gospel of consumerism.
And do you think consumerism is something that, in your experience, has gotten stronger over the past few years?
Oh yes, definitely, because the number of complaints that's pouring in, that shows that they know that they have certain rights. If they cannot fight it there and there, they have a body like Consumer Council of Fiji that can fight for them.
Thank you, Ms. Seema Shandil, for joining us on the show today. We wish you all the best for the work that you have lined up in the future.
Thank you.
And that's all we have for you tonight. Join us again next Sunday. Good evening.